Good afternoon. We're continuing to read The Afterlife is Smaller Than Expected. I hope you enjoy. Reincarnation, Harold squeaked to himself, his voice carrying the same tone he'd once reserved for discovering parking tickets. Of course, because simply ceasing to exist would have been too straightforward. He sat back on his haunches, a position that felt disturbingly natural, and attempted to process his situation with the same analytical approach he'd once applied to quarterly reports. The facts were these. He had successfully died. He had unsuccessfully stopped existing. He was now a rodent in what appeared to be someone's kitchen. The cosmic filing system had apparently decided that Harold Finkelbottom's next assignment would be conducted at a significantly smaller scale. "This is what I get for not reading the terms and conditions," he muttered, then paused, startled by how easily the concept of muttering had translated to mouse vocal cords. A sound from somewhere far above caught his attention, the distinctive thump of a human footstep approached. Harold's new instincts kicked in with alarming efficiency, sending urgent messages to his tiny brain. Hide. Run. Survive. Don't get stepped on. These were thoughts Harold had never experienced as a human, unless one counted his performance reviews. He scurried towards what appeared to be the gap between the refrigerator and the cabinet, moving with a speed and agility that would have impressed his former self. As he squeezed into the narrow space, Harold couldn't help but appreciate the efficiency of his new body. Even as his human consciousness reeled from the absurdity of the situation, from his hiding spot he watched as an enormous human feet entered his field of vision. The feet belonged to legs, which presumably belonged to a person. Though from Harold's new perspective, humans were less people and more mobile architectural features with questionable fashion sense. The feet wore fuzzy slippers decorated with cartoon cats. "Oh, that's just perfect," Harold whispered. Cats, because this day needed more irony. The feet moved about the kitchen with purposeful efficiency, and Harold found himself analyzing their movement patterns with the same obsessive attention he'd once applied for spreadsheet formulas. The human whom Harold mentally designated as the giant was apparently preparing breakfast, judging by the sounds of cabinet doors opening and the electric hum of appliance being activated. Harold's new senses provided him an overwhelming array of information. He could smell coffee brewing, toast browning, and something that might have been eggs scrambling. More importantly, he could detect the faint but unmistakable scent of other mice, evidence that he was not alone. The realization should have been comforting. Instead, it filled Harold with a profound sense of cosmic absurdity. That's the end of chapter 1. Moving on to chapter 2, Orientation Day in Hell. Harold's first full day as a mouse began with the sound of what he could only describe as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse tap dancing on the ceiling above him. This turned out to be the giant's alarm clock, followed by the giant's attempt at what Harold generously assumed was meant to be walking, but sounded more like a controlled avalanche. He had spent the night wedged between the refrigerator, discovering that his new body came equipped with an impressive ability to compress itself into spaces that would have challenged a piece of paper. It also came with an alarming tendency to twitch at every sound, from the refrigerator's periodic hums to the building's settling creaks, each noise triggering what Harold's human mind recognized as pure, undiluted prey animal terror. "Excellent," Harold muttered, as morning light filtered through the kitchen window, revealing his new world in full detail. Chronic anxiety Just what my mental health needed. The kitchen looked different in daylight, less like a mysterious cavern and more like a standard suburban food preparation facility with gigantic appliances and an alarming number of potential death traps. Harold counted no fewer than 3 mouse traps scattered around the room's perimeter, each one baited with something that smelled considerably more appetizing than the sleeping pills he'd consumed in his previous life. His stomach chose that moment to inform him, with a rumble that seemed disproportionately loud for his diminutive size, that he had not eaten in approximately 18 hours. In human terms, this would have been a mild inconvenience. In mouse terms, according to the urgent chemical signals flooding his tiny brain, this was approaching catastrophic. Priority 1, Harold announced to the empty kitchen. Figure out the local food situation without triggering any spring-loaded execution devices. He ventured out from behind the refrigerator with the cautious movements of someone who had recently learned that the universe possessed a darker sense of humor than previously suspected. His new senses provided a constant stream of information that his human mind struggled to process. The subtle variations in air currents that indicated the presence of obstacles, the complex layering of scent that told stories about everything that had transpired in this space over the past several days, and the vibrations on the floor that announced the approach of footsteps long before his ears could detect them. It was, Harold reflected, like being equipped with surveillance system designed by someone with obsessive compulsive disorder and a fear of being eaten. The nearest accessible food source appeared to be a small pile of crumbs beneath the toaster's remnants of the giant's breakfast preparations. Harold approached them with the same careful attention he'd once reserved for reviewing legal documents, checking for signs of poison, traps, or other hazards that might indicate this was too good to be true. The crumbs turned out to be toast fragments, lightly buttered and carrying a faint taste of cinnamon. They were. Harold was surprised to discover absolutely delicious. This was concerning because Harold's human palate had been notoriously difficult to please. The fact that random floor debris now qualified as gourmet cuisine suggested his standard had been dramatically recalibrated along with his body's size. Great, he said between bites. I've been downgraded to finding garbage appetizing. What's next? Developing an appreciation for reality television? He ate. Harold became aware that he was being observed. A soft scratching sound from somewhere near the baseboards was followed by the appearance of a sleek brown mouse who regarded Harold with a sort of expression typically reserved for watching someone use a fork to eat soup. You're new, the brown mouse said, her voice carrying a matter-of-fact tone of someone stating an obvious but important fact. Harold nearly choked on his crumbs. You can talk? Of course I can talk. We can all talk. The question is whether you can understand us, which most of our kind can't. She tilted her head, studying Harold with dark eyes that seemed far too intelligent for a creature that should have been primarily concerned with avoiding cats and finding cheese. You're different, she said. Different? How? Harold muttered. You smell wrong. Not mouse wrong, human wrong. But you're clearly mouse-shaped. She moved closer, her movements precise and economical. I'm Penelope. I'm what passes for the welcome committee around here, mostly because everyone else is too paranoid to approach newcomers who might be diseased, crazy, or working for exterminators. Harold said, then paused. I'm not working for the exterminators. That's exactly what someone working for the exterminators would say, Penelope replied. But I'm a mouse, said Harold. Deep cover, Penelope answered. Harold stared at her. You think the exterminators are recruiting mice as double agents? Harold said. Harold, Penelope said patiently. You've been a mouse for less than 24 hours, haven't you? How did you? Harold stumbled. You're eating toast crumbs in the middle of the kitchen floor in broad daylight while having a conversation loud enough to wake the dead. You're either spectacularly suicidal, completely insane, or you haven't yet developed proper survival instincts, she said, then paused. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope you guys enjoy.